We are indeed doing it. Hello and welcome to the Daily Roto Premium NBA program. This is the Monday, April 26th edition. Andrew Barron here, Christopher Pacheco here. Pacheco, we have a lot of games tonight. It's an 11-game slate. I'm excited to get back into it with you. Took a couple days off at the end of last week, which was very nice to do. But here we are, and we've got all this news. How have you been? Did you miss me?
Absolutely.
Great.
Come on. I mean, come on. Of course I missed you. I'm glad you're back. You know, have you watched Breaking Bad? I know that's probably a bad question because who hasn't, right? But there are people that haven't watched it.
Yes, that's true.
But you have, right?
I have. Yes.
This feels like the End Times episode where Jesse walks into Saul's office and Saul's just like packing everything and getting rid of all the all the bad things that he has in his office.
All the receipts.
And he goes, it's the End Times, kid. You know, like get with the times. This is what it felt like today walking into this. It's there's nearly 30 players questionable in the slate. And
I saw that Fantasy Labs tweet that was just like there's 27 dudes questionable tonight with the Elmo Flames. It was good stuff.
Yeah. So it becomes overly difficult to talk about this stuff. Well, I mean, obviously we'll try our best, but at this point, if you don't know this, I guess you haven't been following along. But if you're not ready to stay on your computer till 10 o'clock tonight, 10:30, whatever lock time is, don't even bother. Don't even bother.
Yeah, it's gonna be a rough one. It's funny you should bring up Breaking Bad because when you say it, it makes me think of like what was so fun about that show from the start. What immediately hooks you in is like every time in the first couple episodes, it's like, well, I caught up a little late. I think I started watching when it was on the third season, so I was catching up. And those first couple episodes, I'm like, how is there a third season? Because halfway into it, it's like all of these people are going to die. There is no possible way out of this situation. And then they kept getting out of it, which was, that was most of the fun of that show. But that kind of feels like the situation we're in tonight. Like, how are we going to get out of this one alive?
That's what it feels. That's what it's been feeling like. And then you get to feels like the final boss, and you're like, okay, how are we gonna get through this one? Well, we will. We always do. It'll be completely fine.
Yeah. We've both worked in restaurants, and it's like when you get into the weeds, it's like, what are you going to do? It's like, it's going to end. All I can do is what I can do.
Yeah.
And that is the NBA tonight. So to that end, let's start off, I guess, Philly. Should we maybe wait and do Philly and Dallas until we actually maybe get some news on the show? Because it's possible that could happen. Otherwise, it's just pure speculation. Those are the most interesting teams because they both just listed like 7 dudes questionable. So maybe we'll get some news on the show, and we'll talk about that. I guess a game that's going to have a fair amount of value or some weird plays in it would be the Atlanta Hawks and Detroit Pistons. Atlanta is on the back end of a back-to-back. They played yesterday. Trae Young had an ankle sprain. Sounds like he's probably going to miss the rest of the regular season. Should come back right around in time for the first round of the playoffs. In theory, like 2.5 week injury. But the big story, I guess, here is what Bogdan Bogdanovic has been doing. He's got 5 full games without Trae Young, and he's put up a 26.6 usage, 22.3 assist rate. They have a good offensive rating when he's out there. It's a 118. Like, they played well with Bogdan as the commander. Does that continue tonight? Has his price gotten too out of control? What are we thinking here with Atlanta in general, and your thoughts on Bogdan this evening?
Certainly, think that it's not actually, it's not what I think. It's what's happened, right? Bogdan's kind of taken over here for Atlanta without Trae. Would that continue tonight? I think so. I mean, we're not going to have Trae in here tonight. And they've been starting Herter and Bogdanovic together, and not starting Brandon Goodwin or Lou Williams or anything like that. So, Bogdan's acting as the primary ball handler, essentially for this team. And I think there is certainly upside on the rates, as you mentioned, that usage being a little bit higher than what we have on site right now. big challenge here is the price tags feel pretty darn appropriate for everybody that you will want to play on the Atlanta side. And it is an 11-game slate with loads of value coming. A mountain of value is about to pop up at some point. So I think these guys are going to end up being really low owned. That I feel pretty good about. Outside of that, I don't have much for you.
Yeah, I got you. I think the question here then becomes is like, because the price tags are up there, is like, can we start to consider Bogdan in that upper stud range? I mean, there's 11 games, so we've got Russ and Jokic and Luka. I mean, we may not, who knows? We might not have any of them, but in theory, we have those guys. Obviously Bogdan is not up in that range, but is he like, are you comfortable with him as a secondary spend? Like, do you think he has that upside to like blow through it and compete with your Brad Beals and Julius Randles and Jimmy Butlers of the world, or do you still think a little lower than that?
No, it has to be a little bit lower than that. I think it has to be a little bit lower than that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it though, because at his price tag, blowing through the projection, we're not saying he has to do 60. If he does 50, I mean, that's already really good. Right. And so it also depends on the level of studs that we have on the slate, which at this point we don't really know. But I feel comfortable enough to play him in tournaments, if that's what it boils down to. I think he has upside into the low 50s here.
Agreed. And I think just the ownership, it's going to be low enough that I'm willing to take a few stabs. He really has had some big upside. And what you said is absolutely correct. I think 50 is going to get you into the conversation. It gets a little bit tricky just because, like I said, there are all those other dudes out there. But you also, on a slate this big, generally you're not hitting the true nuts either, because there's just so many options out there. Like the theoretical optimal lineup, there's like billions of combinations tonight versus on a 5-game slate. It's, I don't know if billions is even right, but but there's exponentially more, probably 100 times more at least possible lineups tonight than there would be on like a 5-game slate or something like that. And Bogdan is low enough owned that I think he's just got to beat a few dudes, and so I am willing to take a few stabs on that. I'm not really willing to take a few stabs on anybody on Detroit. You like Jeremy Grant or Josh Jackson? I mean, what do you got? This is bad.
Well, Josh Jackson is one of the Q guys here in this one, so we'll see if he plays. With Jeremy Graham back, his usage probably takes a little bit of a hit in terms of it. It's not going to get out of control how it can get without Jeremy Grant out there. The price tag on Jackson is 5,500 on FanDuel though, so I think he's in a playable range. I think Grant is in a playable range. Plumlee, it's just so hard to pin down. The last couple games, the playing time has been coming up, whereas a few games before this one, he was barely playing. So it's really tough to figure out what to do with him on the median side. But the upside seems like it's still there if the coach is willing to play him in the high 20s and low 30s. So I think those are the guys that I take a shot on. Bay, his minutes have taken too big of a hit with the team healthier, or not, I shouldn't say healthier, just with the regular dudes playing. Like he plays mid-30s without Grant, but then the minutes have been in the 20s with Grant in there. So not really into that. So it's a few guys on Detroit, but honestly, if you wanted to X them out on the slate, if you wanted to make that the team that you X out, I think it's fine.
Yeah, like I'm always kind of tempted. I feel like I talk about Mason Plumlee a fair amount just because he does have those like 60-point games out of nowhere, and it generally happens when he's the ball handler, but it hasn't happened in a long time. And I feel like that's probably due to like maybe, or at least partially due to their current rotation of guards, the people who are handling the ball. Maybe it's just he's not being tasked with it. And that does make sense to some degree. Like Killian Hayes is back. They want to see what they've gotten him. So like, and then it's also that we just it's a Jokic and Embiid, and Cat is back, and we've got Gobert. It's just, there's too many centers for me to like probably waste the spot on Mason Plumlee. So I'm tempted, but I don't think I'm going to go there. I do not think I'm going to go there. San Antonio and Washington. Washington's on the back end. This is some big news. Russell Westbrook is one of these hundreds of questionable people. Washington has also lost first round pick Denny Avdia for the season and probably some of next season. That not seem like a good injury. So feel bad for that guy. And then Robin Lopez is also questionable tonight. Spurs are relatively clean, but Washington's got some stuff that could happen here. So you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, the Russ thing is, you could argue, be one of the biggest swings on the slate for another star in Bradley Beal. I mean, his projection is essentially going to go up to kind of where Westbrook is at right now. So he'll certainly project into 50s. I'm very confident that if Westbrook isn't out there. Surprisingly, Andrew, Washington is they've been winning a good amount of games here of late.
Yeah,
I think they've won like 8 in a row or something. Yeah.
Listen, Russ is a floor raiser. He's not a good. The problem with him is he can't be the second or third best guy on an amazing team, which is like the role he should have because he's not good enough to be the best guy on a championship level team. But he's good enough to be the best or second best guy on like an okay team. He's a good floor raiser. Like he gets his stuff done.
Well, yeah, and now in terms of the playoff conversation, they're just 2 behind Indiana, who they just can't get healthy. So they're going out there, and I think it's a big reason why you're still seeing competitive minutes out of these dudes, like regular minutes or beyond that for guys like Westbrook and Beal. So you have to feel confident from that angle, that you're not playing like Toronto as an example, where they're weird in that they played these dudes a million minutes last game, but they've also been resting guys left and right because they're not trying to compete. So that team has, in my opinion, considerable more risk on the minutes than Washington, who's actually playing for something. So I feel good about their minutes. I will feel even better about Beal's projection, Rui's projection, who's available tonight. I think Neto is going to get another boost as well. A lot of these dudes on Washington, they just get big boosts on the rates without Russ out there. So.
Yeah, because Russ just takes up so many rates. That's what he does. Beal's assist rate goes from 21% on the season to 32.5 in full games without Russ. People know that. This is the thing. Is like, does Beal become like too chalky for a play on an 11-game slate? Like maybe.
Probably.
If Russ is out. And probably, yeah.
Probably.
If Russ is out, Beal's a great play. Lock him in cash, obviously, blah, blah, blah. Worry about the tournament stuff.
I think he'll be in the my guess would be no Russ. He'll easily be in the 20 to 30% owned range on this slate.
I think so too, because he does and possibly even higher. The thing that would stop him from going just like absolutely nuclear, especially on FanDuel where it's the 2 shooting guard thing, is Paul George is out there too, and he is going to be quite the popular play because he gets New Orleans. He gets, no Kawhi. The rates are good. I mean, the price is up on him over Beal at this point. So where they're probably going to end up rating pretty similarly. I'm with you that Beal would be higher, but, they're both going to be pretty owned. So that is worth noting. Anybody you care about on San Antonio, it's kind of the same thing with them. It's been all year. They're like the prices keep coming down. It's like, man, do I start to take some stabs? But I don't know. Keldon Johnson's 4,100, but that means he's going to get owned. So I'd rather dodge it than try to chase the 40 spot if he's going to be 16, 18% owned.
Well, no back-to-back for San Antonio, huge, right? You got to feel better about the minutes. And here's the thing, San Antonio is another team that's playing for something.
And playing well.
And absolutely playing for something. So I mentioned this Saturday. I felt really good about playing multiple Spurs that night because of the fact that I thought DeRozan could play like 38. Like the core guys, I thought they'd play more in that game against New Orleans. Did it churn out multiple tournament winners from there? No, but it got pretty close at least because multiple guys, ended up doing pretty well. I think that's another scenario here tonight to consider. The biggest challenge, in my opinion, is the slate size. If Saturday was like a 6-gamer, so it was much easier for me to give that advice. Tonight, it's going to be significantly harder. And I think If you're playing Spurs, you're probably just playing one. But the good thing about it is you can feel really, really good about the minutes. Rates, there's a lot of competition, right? Because the Rose and Murray are going to be out there. Derek White's rates, again, looked gross last game, but the minutes were great. So I think that's another scenario that could happen here. Even if guys just don't pick up a lot of rates, they'll pick up a lot of minutes. Same thing with Pirtle to an extent. Like, he didn't do much on the rate side, but had 6 stocks on 36 minutes on Saturday. So minutes are great, but I still probably would just do one Spur. I do have interest on DeRozan, Murray, White, probably a lower level than those guys.
Yeah.
But I have interest.
White was the biggest prospect of these dudes, of their current crop. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But he was the one that looked like he had the highest upside, and he's been playing a little better lately. So, yeah, he did stand out a little bit as a value. The Spurs are just not a particularly fun fantasy team in general. Obviously, we know their rotations have been hard to figure out. It's a little easier tonight. But, they're a below-average offense and a really good defense. And that's their 4th in point differential over the last 2 weeks. Still only 19th in offense, but they are number 1 in defense lately. Make of that what you will, but they're playing well.
I also think from a sites perspective, it's really easy because on DraftKings, White being 6,900, I feel really confident saying he's not going to end up being a tournament winner on this slate. You can just kind of take him out of the conversation on certain sites. So be price aware on a slate like this with these dudes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's 5,800 on Fan. They're just all really cheap on FanDuel is the thing.
Yes.
So
yes,
there's some plays there. I wouldn't be trying to jam in several of them or anything. Okay, well, let's talk about, because this is a really good fantasy game and one that we know a fair amount of the injury report on. So while we wait for possible more news to break, is that shooting guard counterpart of Bradley Beal that I was speaking of in Paul George. He is going to be in New Orleans. He probably is in New Orleans as we speak. I would be shocked if he's not, because they play in a couple hours. So they will be playing tonight, and the Clippers are pretty shorthanded. We've got still no Kawhi, no Ibaka, no Patrick Beverly, and Rondo is questionable, which would lead to even more time for Paul George to have the ball in his hands. And he gets this, horrible Pelicans defense that doesn't defend the three-point line, and Paul George is shooting 45% from 3 this season. So seems good to me.
Yeah, for sure. You got to feel quite good about Paul George, right? Tonight, price tag on FanDuel is appropriate. DraftKings 9,600. It's starting to creep up there, but he's still a play. Rating as a play. I think he's a play for sure. I think the thing here is the plays are pretty condensed and obvious, aren't they? Paul George on the Clipper side for sure is a play. Marcus Morris, you could argue as a play. I would not play him together with Paul George for sure. And honestly, that's it for me on the Clipper side. Reggie Jackson, too expensive for me. I know they're not going to have Luke Kennard, so Man will play more. The price tags are just okay on him, so I'm probably passing on just okay tonight. So that's it for the Clipper side. I don't think I'm doing Zubats, at center. So pretty obvious.
No, I don't think so either. Just too many options, and we've talked about him a fair amount, where he is definitely more in that Al Horford, Dennis Kanter kind of cash range, where he's not going to drop a 50 ever. So, while the point per dollar might look nice when he's at 5K or whatnot, probably not winning a tournament, especially not on a night when we've got all these monster centers out there. So, I think that's a place to spend up. And then on the New Orleans side of the ball, it's pretty much status quo for them. I mean, if Steven Adams doesn't play, that does open up value in your Jackson Hayeses of the world. But it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Josh Hart have been out for a while. And then James Johnson and Steven Adams are questionable. What do you got? What do you like on New Orleans?
Yeah, well, it feels like it's right. We're back to just Zion, Ingram, and not much else. I don't feel confident about anyone else here. Lonzo is looking like a decent value on FanDuel because he's 6,100, but the rates aren't big enough with Ingram and Zion out there. it's just too much for him. So I worry about him. Maybe Najee Marshall sprinkle if James Johnson is out or something, but feels like it's Zion and Brandon Ingram. You are not playing them together on the slate. Zero chance of doing that. And that's really about it.
Yeah, I think so too. And quietly, New Orleans has not been quite as much of a fun team lately. They're down to 9th in offense, up to 27th in defense. That's on the year. They're 18th in offense and 8th in defense the last couple of weeks. That's like actively bad for fantasy. So,
sure.
I still think they're a bad defense. I still think specifically Paul George has like the great matchup here because Ingram can't do anything. So he'll get around him. And, it'll be Lonzo a fair amount too, who's fine, but nothing special. And whatever. Paul George, the rates are going to be there. The value is there. So I am fine going after that. Next game, let's talk about Cleveland and Toronto, which has a whole lot of stuff. And we got a question here. Cleveland is on the back end of a back-to-back. Toronto is on an island game. They will be mildly shorthanded. But thoughts on Cleveland-Toronto stack and our Toronto playing for a spot for the 10 seed. I will go first on this, saying that I don't want to stack on an 11-game slate. It's just too risky. Catching overtime is not necessarily going to get you there on 5 dudes at once the way it can on a 5-game slate. And then Toronto is probably packing it in. But, maybe they're trying. Obviously, Nick Nurse and the players are going to go for it, but they're out of it far enough. I think Ujiri is pretty much pulled the plug and tried to get them out of it, but, they could still sneak in. So we'll see. What about you for Samurai's questions?
Yeah, so the thing with Cleveland is that they're really thin, right? Like they just ruled out a bunch of dudes, mostly like backup guys, but they don't have Colin Sexton either tonight, which is obviously massive for Garland, for multiple guys in there. So certainly understand the wanting to at least mini stack the Cleveland side and then running it back with someone from Toronto. Like I don't mind doing that as a game stack.
Great point. No. I'm with you on the mini stacks. Those are fine with all that value. Yeah. It's just the 5-6 guys.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that. But 5-6 guys on this one. That is just such a huge dog to work out and be a tournament winner, right? I'm not saying it's not going to catch, but if
listen, everything is a huge dog to work out and be a tournament winner. Literally everything. So,
and that one just feels too limited. Like it just feels too limited. In a game with where Cleveland has a 101 total just played yesterday, Toronto has a 113 total. But as far as them playing for the 10th seed, they're like 4 or 5 games out. And don't seem to be doing that. So they've been resting guys left and right. So I don't see that.
I don't think so either. I think there is probably a front office imperative of like, let's get a draft pick, guys. Like this, we're gonna have a chance because they have a good enough core. Like the Siakam OG core is and Van Vliet. Sorry, whoops. Those 3 guys, they're good enough to be in the what is the treadmill of mediocrity phrase of like what the Bucks were when they were the 8th seed forever before Giannis came around, or what the Pacers kind of are now, what the Magic have been the last couple of years. Like that's kind of because those 3 are good enough on a healthy season. They're going to be a low end playoff team probably anyway. So like they're not going to have a lot of chances to get to get into the lottery. So. I agree that they should try it. They're not going anywhere. They're going to, what happens if they get in? They're just going to get steamrolled by
Brooklyn, Philadelphia,
Milwaukee.
One of those. Yeah.
It's not going to work out too well. So I don't think that will work. And then I don't think that they are playing for the 10th seed. And I also would not be super into stacking the hell out of the game. But you mentioned Colin Sexton will be out.
Yeah.
What do we got? Yeah. Who does that directly impact for you?
That's Darius Garland. Darius Garland, for sure. We've seen take on another level on rates. And probably those rates could go even further, frankly, because part of the Colin Sexton playing time also came with some Drummond. So I think there's a chance that those rates could be even bigger. I'm saying the games that Sexton have missed, it hasn't been many,
Right.
but Drummond was also part of this team earlier in the year, and Drummond is a big rates guy, so that's kind of what I'm referencing. I think Garland can do whatever he wants. We'll see if Kevin Love plays. I mean, I'm assuming they'll try to give him a try because they're just so thin. Like they're missing like like enough of the bottom end guys like Lamar Stevens, Dylan Windler, who's out for the season. Sexton is certainly one of their best guys. Harnstein, the backup center there for them. Torian Prince, Larry Nance, and then Dellavedova. So they're missing plenty of dudes. But as far as direct impacts, like I think Yeti is a guy that you want to play tonight, just because he's going to start for Sexton, and I really do believe that he'll get big playing time here. They could give Broderick Thomas or Damian Dotson extra minutes, and that screws up Yeti. But they don't have like the good backups for Yeti tonight, so I feel better about him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the one thing that you might want to be careful about is if you look at the games without Colin Sexton, Jetty Osman has a 22 usage and 20 assist rate, which is good, not incredible, but like much better than he would normally do. Thing is, like 6 of those games were also without Garland.
Right.
So in the game, and on the games when Garland was around, Garland in full games without Sexton has a 28 usage and a 34 assists. So yeah, he's going to get a lot of work in tonight. And he is Garland's a pretty good player. His efficiency's been good. He's shooting 40% from 3 for the year.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got the superstar potential, but like he looks like a pretty good starting point guard in the league for a while. I think he'll be fine. So
I think he's playable. I think he's playable. He's more expensive now, but I think that he's playable at the ownership that he'll get. I feel really strongly about that. Whereas Yeti, honestly, the good thing with a Yeti fade is that we've also seen him be ridiculously inconsistent. That's why he's not sometimes he just gets DNP-CD because he's not a consistent rotation player for them. He's just not consistent. His shooting isn't very good. He has nights. He'll have nights, but then he won't have nights, and he'll play a lot of empty calorie minutes. So I think that a Yeti fade in the slate that is going to have more value, frankly, makes some sense in tournaments. I mean, if you're just playing if you're playing MMA, you want to have some. You don't want to fade him completely, of course. But
he's priced on FanDuel. You're locking him in cash. It's all that stuff. But he's going to be certainly overowned compared to his optimal probability. Like 100%.
And he's an early game too, so people are going to want to lock in that early value that they know is for sure there, and they're not going to want to wait for the other news that might be coming after lock, right? So,
yep, I'm with you there. And we didn't exactly talk about who to play. You got anyone you like on Toronto? That is who their opponent will be this evening.
So with Toronto, it's pretty simple. You're considering the core 4, Siakam, Van Vliet, Lowry, and Anunoby. You're not really considering anyone else. Birch is too expensive for my taste. He is power forward on FanDuel. That's good. Cannot imagine his rates being. I mean, he can do he might be able to do like a 10-10 with some stocks or some sort of something like that. So. Do that with what you will. Yeah, it's useful. I think he's okay, but the core 4 is really what you're considering. In this slate, I wouldn't do. There's no chance I'm doing more than 1 Raptor. So I'm just not doing it. I think there's enough risk on their minutes, especially on a potential blowout game, where it just doesn't work out for multiple dudes here.
Yep, I'm with you. And Cleveland stands out as like a phenomenal team to target because of their turnover percentage, but like a lot, they're leaders in turnovers. I don't have this in front of me, but I can almost guarantee you their leaders in turnovers on the year are Andre Drummond and Colin Sexton. So they could be a little bit more responsible with the ball tonight. So it's not like a Yahtzee spot necessarily for Siakam and Anunoby. just picking people off left and right. I don't necessarily think that that's going to work out. So with you there, Anthony Davis is back.
They played 40 minutes the other night against the Knicks in that afternoon game, and I think that's why people are getting a little maybe confused as to what's happening there. It is mind-boggling. I don't understand the direction that they're going with when they are playing these guys heavy minutes, because I just don't think there's any need to do it. But I think the upside is still there.
I think that's going to be the coach versus front office disconnect, because a coach is never going to willfully tank, right? So he's going to do what he can with the people he has in front of him. Versus the GM can be like, sorry, you're resting tonight, to like take the weapons away from the coach, which I think is fair. It's a fine thing to do. It's just like, it's worth noting that, that can happen. Like Nick Nurse definitely wants to win the games tonight, and so do Siakam and Anunoby and Kyle Lowry and Van Vliet.
Yeah,
absolutely. Anthony Davis is back. He's been back a couple games. He has been working his way up to playing a few more minutes. He got I think it was 16 in his first game and 28 in the second. We have for him this evening. I don't know if you had finished when I looked last. I saw 29. Do we still? Is that what you ended up with?
Yeah. I got him at nearly 30. So 29 3/4. Essentially 30.
Okay. That's playable to me. I think that's getting into like, okay, now there's upside for 33, and it's Anthony Davis. And, the Lakers aren't particularly good as currently constructed without LeBron. And Orlando obviously is absolutely wretched, but like they're going to turn the ball over a ton. They're going to put up bad shots at the rim. Davis is going to have a chance to get a lot of blocks. Like if he's feeling it and he's healthy, I think the upside is immense. And I don't think he's going to have much ownership because people are still going to project him for 26, 28 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. I think he's when I saw the FanDuel price tag and just everything, power forward, Orlando, rates without LeBron, there's so many things that just draws you in. And if this is like a sub 10% play for real, which I think it will be tonight, I don't think anyone's rushing to play this, but I think that they should take some stabs in tournaments there. Orlando's just horrible. Just from a talent perspective, this is just absolutely huge disparity. And like Anthony Davis is by far the best player on the floor, by far. And it's just not close.
Really bringing out the hot takes tonight.
Just incredible hot take. But the one thing is that he's shown some rust, which, hey, it's obviously missing so many games that it makes sense. But I love that the playing time continues to go up. I think, as you mentioned, there's upside for already 33, 34 right off the bat. The question is a competitive game. That's the big question here. Orlando has a 99 team total. You don't see those often. It's only happened a few times this season.
Probably when Orlando's played the Knicks.
Yeah, right. So, it's a horrible spot for Orlando. It's a really, really good one for AD. I think Drummond, in my opinion, is a play in this slate that is not going to get crazy ownership. His rates are not going to look great, especially with Davis playing more. But as you mentioned, Orlando turning the ball over so much, their centers just being so bad, I think it's a clear plus for these guys.
Yeah, and Drummond's a great rate. That's we talked about how much we got paid off quite well playing him at low ownership early this year because he is a guy that Drummond can put up just monster numbers out of nowhere, and a lot of it comes through the blocks and steals from him. I don't think his usage upside is quite what it was in Cleveland when he's playing next to Anthony Davis, but
no,
he's certainly a play. And I will say the rotation was really tight. They really just, not as in like not many players, but just in how sort of stratified it was between the starters and the bench. It was just like these five guys are playing. Now these five guys are playing. Now we're going to bring back in the other five guys. There was a little bit of like Caruso and McLemore going back and forth, but like the starting and closing lineup was very regimented. And I think that's a good thing as far as like the potential for minutes. That's clearly because they're trying to reacclimate to Anthony Davis, and that's not going to stay like that. But it's a good sign. It probably will for a game or two, and you can take advantage of it while it does.
Oh, dude, I listen, man. I think it might last longer than that. Believe it or not, the Lake didn't they lose? Let me confirm this because I don't want to talk and say a lie. I feel like they lost both games to Dallas, or at least one of them. They lost on Saturday, and they lost on Thursday. They lost both games to Dallas here, those are two pretty big games.
Yeah, that's huge. Dallas is really trying to get out of that last. Yeah, they're right there.
They are right there, and now it's like let's finish to play Denver. Who can finish fifth to play Denver? Exactly. Type of rush.
Yeah, Portland had it by a lot, and I mean the Lakers had it by a lot, but Portland should have been able to take that easily, and they've been god awful lately. Just god awful. So Dallas is really right at the threat, and so the Lakers have to have this one. They will have this one. It's not a matter of if they'll win or lose. It's by how much they'll win. They got to win this game though. And so from a rotation standpoint, you can expect things to be pretty damn consistent moving forward. They'll get LeBron at some point, probably I don't know, last week of regular season or something. And they got to play. He has to play to get ready for the playoffs, right? It's not like you can say, "Hey, LeBron, give us 15 minutes and turn it on." They're going to need their rotation to kind of stabilize before making their playoff push. Yep, that is absolutely true. And okay, so they're playing Orlando. Anyone you care about on Orlando to try to bring it back? They are down more people. Just someone that would be having a good game in order to keep it close, so that AD and or Drummond can go nuts. Anybody?
So Orlando does have Enos and Ross questionable. I believe those are the dudes tonight. They probably won't. I mean, they probably won't play. They just won't play, and they'll give more minutes to Dwayne Bacon and all these horrible dudes. That'll probably happen here. But the one guy that I think, if Ross plays, I have some interest. I have some mild interest because I think the rates could just be so great with all the guys that are no longer there. So some interest there if he plays. If he doesn't, I do think Cole Anthony is okay on the slate. Maybe to take some stabs in MME. You are not doing – essentially, you are ruling everyone out from Orlando in single entry 3 max. You're not playing anyone from Orlando. That is getting too cute. You don't do it on 11 gamer. Makes no sense.
Yeah, you don't really. Bringbacks are less important on 11 gamer. Just correlation is just kind of not really worth it because there's so much out there. It's not really like something you're trying to attack as much. The bigger the slates is. Lou will not be playing tonight for Atlanta, so I mean, it's probably going to put Brandon Goodwin into the rotation a little bit more or whatever. But it's really just Bogdan is the captain. There's no chance of Lou Will closing alongside of him and taking over the offensive load, which there kind of was.
And I think Chris Dunn, who's also remember Chris Dunn?
Yeah,
that guy
available tonight. Right,
he's actually available for the first time the entire season. I believe he hasn't played a game, so he'll be in there. We'll probably have a huge minutes limit. But maybe he'll play 15 or something, and Goodwin can play like mid-20s or something like that. I think is a reasonable expectation.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know this either, but you saying it, how old do we think Chris Dunn is?
Oh, Chris Dunn has to be. I'll say he's 26.
Okay, so I think you may well be right here. The thing that we're gonna feel weird about on Chris Dunn, I have not looked it up yet, my hands are free, is that he is one of those guys that's like, okay, he wasn't drafted as long ago as you think. I think he was the 2018 draft, so it's like, okay, usually those are the guys that you're like, oh, whoa, yeah, this guy's still only 23 or whatever. But he played a fair amount of college. I think he might have played 3 years. So, okay.
He did.
So then, 25, 26 sounds right. Let's look it up here.
I'll say 26. I'll stick with 26.
That's 26.9 years. So, cleaning the glass. Oh, 27.1 years. No, that changed. Okay. No, he's 27 now. Yeah, he is.
Happy birthday.
He must have. Yeah, great. He must have played 5 years of college. 7 years of college. So
yeah,
he's old. Wow. He didn't turn out so great. Didn't have the career that he wanted, which is too bad. Oh, and it was the 16 draft. Jesus, he is older than I thought. Wow, he's been around forever. Okay. Anyway, Chris Dunn's around tonight. Good for him. He's gonna be a good defensive player and a horrid offensive player that probably won't even touch the ball very much. Probably will continue to be irrelevant for DFS as he was in most of his Chicago career and certainly his Minnesota career. Yep. Okay, then. Because I was trying to throw to another game, but then I went back to Atlanta. So now we're going to talk about
points.
The hottest team in the league. The hottest team in the league, the New York Knicks, at home in the Mecca, taking on the surging Phoenix Suns, who are on the back end of a back-to-back. And the Knicks are still dogs. They've won 26 in a row. I believe it's 9 in a row. and they're at home taking on a team on the back end of a back-to-back, and they're still dogs. Why? This is unfair. Why do the Knicks get no respect?
No respect, man.
It's because of their freaking schedule. Look at this 9-game winning streak. It's like, I mean, they took care of business. That's good. You want to do that. You want to beat the bad teams. You want to beat the crap out of the bad teams. That's why they have the best point differential in the league the last couple of weeks. But it's been pretty bad teams. So whatever. They got it done. I just don't think they're quite as on fire as you'd think. But number one offense the last couple of weeks, partially because they played some really bad defenses. But number one offense for the Knicks is really not something you'd expect. And they've been a much better offense since Derrick Rose came to town. The Rose, Bullock, Barrett, Randall, and Noel lineup, which is their closing lineup most nights, they got a plus 14.2 point differential. They should be dogs to Phoenix, but they're only 2-point dogs, which is pretty nice.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, that's a lot of respect, I think. It's putting some respect on their name. I
agree, and I think maybe some Knicks fans would be like, this is why we're killing everybody. Come on, but I actually think they are getting pretty good respect here because, if Chris Paul wants to just carve this thing apart, he's going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Phoenix is a good team, man. They're really good. So this is good, New York fans. You're only 2-point dogs at home. It's good. But so listen, I like Randall on the Knicks side for sure.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I like Reggie Bullock some on FanDuel. Let me check his DraftKings tag. I probably won't like him over there. He's 4,800. I am not doing that. 4K on FanDuel, shooting guard eligible. I'm into it. I think there's a lot of heavy point guard plays tonight or shooting guard plays that are really good. Bradley Beal might turn into one of those later too. So this guy's just not going to have much ownership for good reason. But he could play 38 minutes and make some threes, and so I'm into that a little bit.
He's been a really good shooter this year. And especially lately.
Yeah, and no Alec Burks, right? So it's still good for him. It's still good for RJ Barrett. Those dudes are playing monstrous minutes. Barrett's rates, not very good. Randall's taking everything away. And then Derrick Rose, Randall lineup to close. Who's touching the ball? So it's bad for Barrett, obviously. So I have some interest there. Nerlens, I can't do Nerlens in this slate.
Yeah, I don't think
can't
so
do it.
I'm with you. And he does have, Nerlens is like I've talked about him a fair amount, I think he is the best rim protector in the league. He's been the best rim protector in the league this season. But he's really, really skinny. And so Ayton is a bit of a tough matchup for him. He could get into some foul trouble there. Rim protection is not really, it's not stopping center post-ups. It's turning guards layups into floaters and blocking those shots. It's stopping penetration. It's not like we're not talking about when you talk about center defense generally and rim protection. It's really not about it's not about the opposing center anymore. It's not the 1980s. It's just a different kind of way that they play ball and different things that you're trying to stop. And Noel's good at that, but he is going to have a little bit of trouble here. I don't know. I'm with you that I think Randall is very solid as he always is. Rose, you can talk yourself into where you got the right tags. And then on the Phoenix side, I don't know. The prices are pretty elevated for Paul and Booker. Could one of them take over? potentially, I'm going to talk about them first, and then we can get into the wings because we've got some stuff there. But I don't know. Devin Booker is one of those guys that if you wanted to talk yourself into the New York City narrative, like, go for it. Like, people do love playing in New York. That is a narrative that is actually real. And Booker definitely seems like the kind of kid that likes to rise to the moment like that. Here's the problem. We've already got him at a 33.5% usage. He just doesn't really do anything else. That's the problem. So, like, I mean, he's going to have to score like 45 real points probably to be a tournament winner at $8,000. When, especially, you know, you've got Beal and PG competing with him at not like in totally dissimilar prices. So,
and DeRozan too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you there.
Okay. Fair enough. And then on the wing side, no Jay Crowder, so and no Dario Saric, so it's a little bit tighter there. We're going to get some, better minutes for Cam Johnson. What do we got? Is Frank back in the rotation? What are we seeing here?
Yeah. Frank should be back in the rotation here, especially in this matchup. It makes some sense. The Knicks play big, obviously, for a large majority of their game. So, he
gets Noel away from the rim potentially a little bit too. You know, that would help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm pretty certain he'll be in the rotation. I think Torrey Craig, who played monstrous minutes the other night, played 31.5, so really close to 32 minutes there, with no Saric and with no Crowder. So it's essentially the same rotation, right, that they'll use from yesterday's game. I believe that's what they're going to do. So Craig has a chance to get into the 30s. The challenge with Torrey Craig that I am seeing him as a owned play tonight is that yesterday was a complete aberration. If you're using that for Torrey Craig moving forward, you are out of your mind.
Right. How many times has he played over 25 minutes this year? Like the Bucks were not deep for much of this year. They needed those kind of smaller wings, and he did not. They cut him. You know? Yeah,
no. Well, I think defensively he brings some versatility for sure, and I think that works in Phoenix, especially like Jay Crowder, for sure. He shot 6 for 9 yesterday, had 20 points, 14 rebounds. You might never see that again from him, ever again.
He had his Juan Toscano game.
Yeah, he's just not that type of player. If this guy is owned tonight, I feel very confident saying he'll play minutes. Sure. It'll be empty calories type thing. There's going to be so much better value in the slate. Don't tie yourself into that one. I just don't see it working out 2 nights in a row for Torrey Craig. Feels like a huge dog.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we put a 28.5 on him, which is, I think the responsible thing to do. But I think there's downside for that to be 22. We don't really know what we're getting out of him. So there are a number of possibilities here.
And I think very similarly about Cam Johnson, and I've mentioned this before on him. It's not the minutes that I'm worried about, especially with all these dudes out. I feel really strongly that he'll play these minutes. I don't feel great about the rates. Alongside Booker and Paul, someone like Mikal Bridges has even fallen off a bit on the rates because they do everything. So Cam Johnson's just going to stand in the corner, and if he makes his threes, you can get 30 fantasy points, maybe. If not, you're looking at 14 to 16. So that doesn't seem like much of a play on this slate.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that is right. Okay. Let's move to Minnesota and Utah because we got a question from Noel, which is a good one. Why is Edwards' projection so low? We have there's an NA somewhere in his output. I'll fix that shortly after the show. It'll be done.
Yeah.
Just after. So Minnesota is on the front end of a back-to-back, but they are in Utah, which is not great. Anthony Edwards will score more than 0 fantasy points tonight. I'm relatively certain of that. But I don't know. This is a bit of a tough one. Not much on the injury reports for either team. Malik Beasley's been out. Donovan Mitchell's been out. That's literally about all we've got. So any plays here, anything, or is you scared of the blowout? You're not scared of the blowout? Utah's been just kind of okay lately. What do we got?
Well, What's wrong with Edwards actually is that there was a typo on his minutes.
Great.
That will definitely be fixed.
Oh, we can fix that right now. Great.
Yeah.
You found it. You got perfect.
Yeah, that's not going to be a problem at all. But so at those minutes that were a little bit low, I still would expect mid 30s, high 30s there for Anthony Edwards tonight, as long as the game is competitive, right, and everything kind of works out. I feel like him, Cat. I feel pretty good about D'Lo as well. I mean, those guys are going to have to carry the load if this game's going to be competitive. If they can't, this game's going to be an ugly blowout. But
Russell finally got his 30 minutes last game.
But you feel pretty good about at least two of those three guys delivering, right? Who that will be? I mean, I still feel pretty strongly about Cat. You probably feel worse about Edwards out of the bunch in terms of delivering like a really strong performance. So I think that would be my pecking order there, Andrew. I like Cat. I like D'Lo. I like Edwards in that order. As far as making this game competitive, it's at home for Minnesota. Utah's down Don Mitchell. I feel better about it. Minnesota has absolutely no incentive to play bigger minutes anymore. They're not in the playoff conversation. They never were. But they're still playing their guys big minutes. So I feel pretty confident in that. I think the worst thing about Cat in this slate is Jokic and Embiid. Embiid, maybe if he doesn't play, one less guy to worry about, but he'll have to deal with Jokic, and that's a tall task.
Absolutely. I said that Utah was home because I wrote them backwards on my sheet for some reason. My bad. Yes, Minnesota is at home, just to clarify that confusion. Pacheco was correct there. Minnesota's been a pretty good offense lately. They've been certainly better. Cat's been really good. I don't think Gobert is not really the type of guy that's going to do a great job defending Cat. So I'm not like that worried about, like Gobert you worry about with certain people for sure. He's a great defensive player. He's really troublesome for guards at the rim, and he can wrap up big centers. But like chasing guys around the 3-point line is not, doing stuff out in space. Like he still struggles with that as much as most people. He can close back to the rim better, but I do like Cat, and I'm not particularly scared of the Gobert matchup here. And then on Utah, I don't know. I mean, Gobert himself, sure, but are we a little worried about his rebound rates going down a little bit with having to be further away from the basket guarding Cat so much?
I mean, I think it's an angle to be at least mildly concerned about. That, frankly, that's not what worries me in this one. It's just the so many center plays. I think that's the biggest thing here. But as far as Gobert, in terms of him as a play tonight, yeah, you do feel pretty good about his projection. I don't think there's anything wrong on the inputs or anything like that. So I think it's fine. It's showing up as a really strong value on FanDuel at 8,100. Certainly think he's probably one of the better cash center plays out there. But I do like other tournament guys at center, probably more than him. I still like Mike Conley a lot. He's crushing on the rate side on these minutes that he's playing. He's just not getting many. He's not getting many opportunities in terms of the minutes. The other night it was a competitive game and he played like 30. So,
and I think that makes sense. Like they are trying to take it easy on him. The last thing they need is for him to get hurt again before the playoffs.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's kind of stinks for fantasy because I only think he needs a few more minutes in there to just complete the crush job. But if we're only getting 30, yeah, he's going to have to capitalize right on everything in those minutes. Still feel good about him. I think Ingles is fine. I think Clarkson is fine. Bogdanovich in this slate, I don't know. Mid fives on FanDuel, I think it's fine for him as a small forward, but not really all that into it. I think it's fine.
Yeah, it is fine. I mean, that honestly, this big, like a couple sort of like cornerstone, a 30 might get you there, just because there's so many plays. There's going to be a lot of landmines, right? There's a lot of value plays, but there's also going to be just so many plays that. For sure. A lot of stuff is going to go wrong. So sometimes, like more than on shorter slate, depending, whatever. Everything can depend, but I think that there are outs for him to work, but I'm not super into it either. Okay, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls and Miami Heat. We've got 3 more games here. We got to get moving here. Chicago, Miami, where Troy Brown will be out on the Chicago side of the ball. That's it for them. And then Hero and Nunn are questionable for Miami. So pretty clean injury reports. I'm not seeing a ton of value here. Is Vooch in the center conversation for you? What about this game stands out to you?
He's not on DraftKings. It's not even. I'm not even willing to bite. No shot. He's 10-3 over there. FanDuel 8,700. It draws you in. He's also. We're talking about Vooch. He's 5% optimal on FanDuel. Sure, it's not 0, but it's also kind of indicating that.
Yeah, it's probably what Bojan Bogdanovic is, for real.
Yeah, it's not great either, right, as a play. So I am very indifferent about this, even on FanDuel, where he's just 8,700. Outside of that, what are you doing on the Chicago side realistically on the slate? Kobe White, I think you could throw out there. I don't want anything else to do on the Chicago side. Nothing.
I think so too. Yeah, Kobe's been interesting lately. He's, I think there's definitely upside. His just fantasy points per minute have been really bad. He's just really inefficient, but sometime he'll have a reasonable night. So with you there. And then on Miami, I mean, if one of the guys misses, sure, but they're pretty full and pretty full price. Like it's tough. Jimmy and Bam, like they're a much better team when both of them play, but it's tougher for fantasy when both of them play.
Yeah, well, my God, this game has a 206 total here. 106 for Miami, 100 for Chicago. I mean, is this even right? This is gross.
Yeah, that is weird.
This is just absolutely gross here. So, I mean, obviously the low total is affecting the projections here for a lot of these guys. Jimmy and Bam look like reasonable guys on FanDuel. On DraftKings, not so much. I'm okay with playing it that way. I think Bam, another dude, 5% optimal on FanDuel-ish because he's center. If he was power forward, maybe that'd be different. But center, it's too tough. So I'm probably out on that. You can't do Trevor Ariza at the slate. No. So it's right. It's just Jimmy. It's if you have any sort of interest on Jimmy or Bam, and that's where the conversation ends.
I'm with you. I think that those are all good points.
None is questionable in this one.
Yep. None and Hero both.
None and Hero both. So that could open up some more playing time, but it won't be for Jimmy, right? I mean, Jimmy's already from a minutes angle, he's full. So it'll be for someone else that probably won't be relevant for DFS.
Yep, I would tend to agree with that. Okay, Memphis and Denver. We have Memphis are on the back end of a back-to-back, and Denver is on an island game, but they just can't stay healthy. Now they're down Will Barton too. What's going on with Denver?
Yeah, man, it's not good that they keep losing these starters and stars. I mean, they lost a legitimate one in Jamal Murray. It's not good. It's not good for the playoffs. It's fine now. They'll be all right, but in the playoffs, it won't be good.
Right.
Think Jokic again, awesome play. Think this game they have very much an incentive to win for sure. So does Memphis. So expect full minutes, especially for Jokic, Michael Porter. The guys that we know, they'll play a bunch. PJ Dozier now joins kind of that group in terms of with Noble Barn, he's starting, and last game he played like 28 regulation minutes without getting much in the fourth quarter because the game was a blowout against Houston. So I think minutes in the 30s for him now are going to be a realistic thing, and same thing with Campazzo. Biggest challenge there are the rates next to Jokic. They will look just okay. So if you get cheap price tags on those guys like Dozier on FanDuel 4,600, I think it's a good one. I think you can do it. If you don't, move on. Too big of a slate. Nothing to worry about there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jokic will be the most popular of all the really good centers because he should be. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely fine. I would like to play a lot of him. I think that you can get, the leverage play tonight obviously is Embiid, assuming that he plays.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that's been troublesome with Embiid a little bit to kind of bring that game into it is that he's been able to do whatever he wants, but it does seem like he is being limited a little bit still. And against a team like OKC, who are going to be really bad and really friendly for fantasy, and really he's going to be able to do whatever he wants. But is he going to play 28 minutes? Do they blow him out? Does he not really try? Does he only get 6 rebounds? Those are all fair concerns, but it looks like Jokic is going to be 5 times his own. So I don't have a real issue going after a little bit of Embiid.
Yeah, understandably so. Yeah, like everything makes sense, right? In terms of the ownership there. It all makes sense. But ultimately, Embiid being at that spot, if he does play and everything gets cleared out, you do have to like that. It's a phenomenal matchup, just as good as it gets. So he's just going to body who, Moses Brown is just too skinny to deal with that. It's going to be tough for them tonight for OKC if that dude does play. Memphis, full Jaren Jackson Jr. now in there. Joe Val, they're going to play their 10 dudes, but now the 10 are getting to be more quality. You're getting rid of all the fluff. Having Jaren Jackson back is so good for this team. I think Tillman is probably just out of the rotation now because Brandon Clark is still healthy. It's a tough break. Tillman have been playing really well for them lately, but with Jaren Jackson in there now, I think he'll just back up Joe Val. I now think that those Joe Val minutes are not as secure in terms of if they just play Jaren Jackson and Joe Val straight up the full 48, you might just get time, like a legit even split there of 24-24. So that is just not great for DFS. And that does concern me tonight.
I'm with you. I think that makes a fair amount of sense. They are going to be – what was I about to say there? Also Valanciunas has a tough job against Jokic. That's not fun. A lot of foul trouble issues there. Mm-hmm. Morant did have his first nuke a week ago in this spot against Denver. So it was the double overtime game, but he got to 70. I felt a little bit foolish not thinking more about I feel like you and I both maybe a few weeks ago were finally just like, okay, maybe it's just not his year, and we're gonna put Ja on the shelf for a little bit. He's had his games again lately, and he's had a couple efficient ones. And the thing with Denver that makes sense is, they're really bad at the rim. Like, they don't have any rim protection. So, like, that's where Ja can be efficient because he can't really shoot. But, oh, boy, can he get to the rim. He is super fast. They got out in transition all the time. I don't mind a little bit of Ja. I mean, he had a couple of really good games, granted both against Portland. So, he's been taking advantage of easy matchups lately, but he's got an easy matchup tonight. Yeah. Don't see why he can't. I don't hate him for tournaments.
So trying to think here. I think that I don't like the price increase, obviously, right? All of a sudden a dude has a few good games and you're thinking, it's play him on the heater, even at these price tags. It's also an 11 gamer. I love the matchup. I think that Denver being down so many wings, they just don't have. Who do they have to guard Ja? Who do they have?
Right. And they don't have anyone at the back there. Like Jokic isn't good enough to get back there and deal with him. Like if he beats his man, which he is fast enough to do all the time.
Yeah, it's a trouble spot, right? For Denver in this particular spot, because then you have Austin Rivers and Shaquille Harrison coming off the bench and giving them real minutes, not one rotation. Like Austin Rivers is playing more than 20 minutes now, and Shaq Harrison is playing like 14 to 16, which is that just can't happen. It just can't happen. It's a great spot for Ja. I hate the price. I think that him being more efficient lately is great. We have a large sample of that not being the case for Ja as well. If people are going to play him as now that thinking that he'll be an automatic 60, that's just wrong. So if he's going to get a lot of ownership in the slate, I'm completely.
But he's not. That's the thing. So I've got him at like 2% on both sites, and he 5 or 6% optimal. Like is the price a bit much? Yeah, but and Will Barton was, like you were talking about, just being down. He was their best. I mean, I guess like
the dude.
He was their best defensive wing for smaller guys, at least. Gordon has the body to at least deal with the bigger dudes, which Barton didn't. But yeah, Barton would have been a bit of a deterrent for him as well.
It's horrific. No, I mean, it's horrific. I'm telling you, this is horrific. And if they can't get Willie Barton in the playoffs, I don't know. At some point, you just need depth. I think that'll affect them certainly in the playoffs. But now they'll, to finish off the season, they should be fine. I would do jaw on.
Yeah, they're 4 or 5 games clear of LA, Dallas, Portland. So like they can't really lose the 4 seed. They'll keep home court advantage and face whichever one of those crappy teams plays the best over the last couple of weeks.
I would do jaw on FanDuel. The pricing is not going to matter on FanDuel tonight. I'm just telling you that right now. Not going to matter. You're going to do whatever you want.
Play whoever you want.
On DraftKings, I feel pretty strongly that I don't want him.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at with it. I wouldn't do anyone else from Memphis, by the way. Too full to just want to do it.
Gotcha. I think that is fair. Is Halliburton, Tyrese Halliburton, going to be 80% owned? That does not seem likely, but he plays in the last game of the evening, which is the Sacramento Kings and the Dallas Mavericks. And man, this is a gross one. Sacramento played last night. Mm-hmm. They were without De'Aaron Fox. They will likely be without him again. They didn't give us an injury report as of when we started the show, but we'll see. And Halliburton did take over. I was talking, me and Ben, I was helping Ben out. He was on alerts, and I was just kind of like giving him some pointers on some stuff. And I was more of the mind, honestly, that Halliburton would not be the one to really take over, or that we kind of kept them all in the 20 to 22% usage range. I didn't really see Halliburton like totally going up a level in shot creation because he's like not that great of a dribbler. So, and it's that awkward shot that takes a little longer to get off. So I didn't see him like creating a ton for himself, but he really did. So, I mean, no, he's not going to be 80% owned. Yes, he is going to be one of the highest owned people on the slate. Yeah. And yes, I think it's probably warranted. He's certainly over-owned in tournaments. That is going to happen, but I think he's a very strong play tonight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel strongly about that too. In terms of what we saw from Sacramento, I guess we should. I mean, talking about the rotation without Fox, it became pretty clear what they wanted to do, right? In terms of just run Hallie for as many minutes and play more DeLon Wright, which they did as well. So things were pretty. From that standpoint, I thought they were pretty status quo. They didn't really bring in other random guys. I mean, Kyle Guy played like a few minutes. We have him for a rotation tonight, but they should be able to do the same thing tonight in terms of a rotation. The challenge really with Sacramento is second night of a back-to-back, not really playing for anything, especially with Fox out of the picture. They can't make a run. Just no shot. I think they were coffined before anyway. I think they're certainly coffined now. No shot. So could they just say, hey, Halliburton played a lot last night. Let's take it easy on him tonight. We have absolutely nothing to play for here. I think it's a scenario. So that scares me in this one because I think that range is still there. The playing 28 to 30 and just playing Kyle Guy or Justin James or some random more minutes. I think that's something that you have to consider as a risk. If he plays the regular minutes, I think the rates are going to be fantastic. So I'm not worried about that. Outside of that, what are you doing? Not much. Not much. Maybe Buddy Hield.
Barnes is playable. Hield is playable.
Yep.
And does Richaun Holmes get a minutes bump? Like, probably not, because they kept him to 20 last night, and now we're on the second night of a back-to-back. And does that open up anything? Nope, clearly not. Hassan Whiteside didn't even play last night. They've got Damian Jones, Chimizi Mitu, and Hassan Whiteside as their, backup trash pile for if Richaun doesn't play that much. So it's not pretty. There's not much.
Yeah, no, there isn't. So it really comes down right to like one or two guys, and then on the one guy on Tyrese, now you're asking yourself, okay, how much of this guy should I play tonight? because I think that's a legitimate thing. I don't think it's a lock candidate. It's nothing like that. You can't really do that with Sacramento at this point of the season.
Yeah, 15% optimal on FanDuel. What was the on DraftKings? Not too far different from that, but I'm guessing
he's 6% optimal on DraftKings. So
there we go. Yeah, well, and part of that too is he's been a pretty low variance player on the season, and maybe there is considerably more variance in him tonight. There are a number of things that go into into the roux, but it will take a minute to like think a guy goes from one, range of outcomes basically to another like immediately. The rate increases we are going to give him are going to explain most of that, but there is a little bit also of it likes players that do 45 and 30 and then 50 and then 30 more than it likes the guy that does 35, 40, 37, 38, which is more what it's going to expect out of Halliburton is
sure
I'm saying there. And they play against the Mavericks. Got some questionables here. You want me to let you know, or do you want to do? Should we just name the people that aren't questionable? Actually, that joke's hard, but it is almost the same amount of people. Luka Doncic, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, Kristaps Porzingis, JJ Redick, and Josh Richardson are all questionable. And buddy, they don't even have Tyrell Terry. What are they going to do here?
Oh man, that's awful for them. No Terry. What are they going to do?
Gabriel Deck is still not available for OKC, by the way. I think we brushed over that. So just sort of knows.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see who's – this is a wait and see, right? We'll see who's available here for Dallas because that's the biggest question mark here for them. We will also see the timing of that because that's really important. This game tonight locks at 10. This is the last game of the night. That is going to be really tricky. I personally, selfishly, that I don't want things to be ruled – everything to be ruled right at lock. That just gives everyone a chance to prepare. So selfishly, I hope that we don't know this. But I can tell you the names that I think would benefit, which we've seen plenty of times. If Luka doesn't play, Jalen Brunson becomes a thing. If Josh Richardson can't give it a go, we've seen Tim Hardaway Jr. play a lot of minutes. Last game he wasn't productive. Cost him minutes and cost him, actual fantasy production because he wasn't able to make shots. But I think that upside is still there for him. If Porzingis doesn't play, I don't think so. I don't think Kleber's a thing. I don't think Dwight Powell, who scored a bunch of fantasy points the other night, that's not a thing. You're not doing Willie Cauley-Stein either. So it's Jalen Brunson. It's Tim Hardaway Jr., who you're kind of giving some boost to here, just to prepare for the event that Luka might not be able to go or Josh Richardson might not be able to go. I think that's what you're doing, and I think Luka probably ends up grossly under-owned tonight. Probably just super tiny ownership.
Oh yeah, I almost made Luka the cover boy. It's like he's. Yeah, it's just stupid low ownership. It's an amazing matchup.
Yes, it is.
It's been in a bit of a struggle, but oh my god, yeah, just play Luka. Here's the thing, that's tough here. So you're thinking like, okay, 11 game slate, whatever. Like I'm gonna have options. Like I'll just leave it open. Make as many of my decisions as I possibly can late. This is a solo 10 o'clock game. There's a solo 9 o'clock game, and then everything else. The 9 of the games are off by 8 p.m. So.
It's bad.
You could get really screwed here, but it's just too worth it to like not play a bunch of Luka, a bunch of Brunson. Have as much as you can for it, and hopefully the news comes out at like 7:30, so it's not before lock. But you still have time to make some decisions as far as the 8 o'clock games go. So we'll see.
Listen, knowing Rick Carlisle, he will wait until 9:56 because he wasn't sure that his guys would be able to go, and he'll rule all of them out.
Yeah,
just because he wants to have an advantage against Sacramento. that dude is as annoying as they come. So I am personally not expecting at least all of the Dallas news to happen before lock. So that's why I say I think you have to make some contingency plans here because it can be really valuable. Luka, I don't know if it's an auto play, but the matchup's great, as you mentioned. The minutes, if the game is decent, I think are going to be there. Rates are going to be pretty good. It's just a price tag I hate it on FanDuel at 11.5. I hate that price tag. It's essentially saying, hey, he's Russell Westbrook, and that is not what he's been this season. This is a fantasy show. I am just strictly talking about the fantasy production. It just hasn't
he's been worse from a real life perspective too this year. So I'll say it.
Yeah. So I don't think the leverage is great from our tools. I just don't think that he's an auto play at this price tag.
No, I don't think he's an auto play. But, I mean, maybe in some Jokic stuff, like you'll probably be playing a lot of Jokic. Maybe that news comes out in time to switch some of your Jokic to Luka if he is playing, kind of thing. It's just, like he's projecting at 6-7% ownership, and that doesn't even know that he's questionable. That just has the projection that, he's playing like everyone has on him. So he's going to be even lower than that. It's just, I mean, if news doesn't come out before lock, which it probably won't, we're going to get like 3% on Luka Doncic against the team that's been the worst defense in the league all year. Like, I can't pass that up. I just can't do it.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. We do have some news. James Ennis and Terrence Ross, you are correct about them, sir. Nice call. They are not going to be playing tonight. And then Philly gave us a bunch of non-news, and that all of those guys are game-time decisions. Thanks.
So Embiid, Simmons, Harris, Green, Korkmaz, all game-time decisions. I would expect I am 95% sure that shenanigans are going to happen there. But feel great about it.
Yeah.
Great about it.
Doc Rivers, also an old school guy. So the two teams with the disgusting 8 people on the questionable report are also managed by a couple of, back when the game was simpler guys. So
Simmons, by the way, was Q earlier. So then they said expected to play, but he was ruled out in advance to all of this. So he went from out to expected to play to now a game time decision. Do with that what you will.
Not much. I don't know, man. Yeah, it kind of just makes me want to free up the salary that I might spend on Embiid, who is projecting similarly to Jokic, taking a lot of that, and or not. Yes, he is projecting a little bit worse than Jokic. I was meant to compare him to Doncic as far as ownership percentage. Embiid and Luka are both projecting as the really low-owned studs tonight. So the guys that I would naturally end up gravitating towards and trying to play, especially on FanDuel, where it's just like you're just going to be able to play. You can probably play 3 studs tonight. Like I bet by the time all the news shakes out, it's going to be conceivable. Maybe not Jokic, Westbrook, Luka lineups because those guys are literally all over $11,000, but there's going to be value. So you can do a lot, and I just I don't know. I maybe would be less inclined to waste my early spots on Embiid than I normally would be, even though I really like the leverage on him tonight.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have a feeling he's just not playing.
Sure.
I think the thing with him is like he probably wants to play to have like the MVP, like be in the conversation and stick with it, but they should. If you want to hear my opinion on what they should do, they should rest him tonight, 100%. This is a rest spot for Joel Embiid, and and then Dwight Howard is probably the guy. I don't think you're rushing to play Mike Scott. No one's rushing to play that dude. So it'll end up being Dwight who ends up the center play here if Embiid sits. And I think if Harris plays in that scenario, right? I think Harris would be a really strong fantasy play. I think his projection is going to be great. I have my doubts about whether the game is going to be competitive. That's just the only thing. Even with Embiid out, I think it'll be a struggle for the game to stay competitive. No Lou Dort on the other side.
Yeah, there could be situations too where they just dress them and in case they need someone, because they do want to win this game. They're too clear. They're too clear Milwaukee, which they should be able to hold that. Like, you know, two clear over what do we got? Like 12 games left. They're definitely big favorites to be able to hold that. But, you know, they got to make sure they win games like tonight. It's not great if you don't.
Well, yeah. Well, Milwaukee did beat them twice very recently. So if there's a tiebreaker scenario there, I think Milwaukee's taking that because they took the season series, I'm pretty sure, between these teams. But you're right. Like, they should hold off. And this game is incredibly winnable. I just think it's incredibly winnable without Embiid as well. So I think that they're gonna try to lean in that direction if you know, my opinion is worth anything. But not to Doc. He doesn't care what I think.
He doesn't, man. I'm sorry about that. He should. You know, you both live in Orlando. Shouldn't you guys be better friends?
I did meet Doc, by the way, at a restaurant once, and I shook his hand and said hello. That was the extent of it, but I thought that was pretty cool.
That's cool. He seems like a really nice guy. I mean, he's
guy.
He's hella charismatic, dude. Like, I mean, he's like the best, media guy from a coaching perspective that we got. He's great at it, and really cool dude. You know, I mean, some of his speeches last summer in the bubble when there were all the protests happening, like, were incredible. I thought he was incredible. He's a cool guy, and we're both Celtics fans too, so have a lot of lingering respect for him for that championship year. Russ is going to play. Robin Lopez is not going to play. Oh, Rui's got a minutes limit. All right, news is happening everywhere. We got stuff. To take care of. We're gonna get out of here, but I think the main thing, it's like this. You want this to be a slate where it's like, okay, leave as many decisions for as late as possible, but you're gonna have to make most of your decisions by 8 p.m. So be careful. That would be the last thing I would say.
Yeah, well, do you really have a choice here? That most of the games lock at 8, and then you have the one lone 9 o'clocker and 10 o'clocker. So it does feel risky if we don't get the Dallas news before lock. But I can also confidently tell you this: it's going to be a mad dash to update everything till 7, and then at 8 again. So you guys are going to have to work with me and be patient because there's going to be a lot of stuff breaking. It's not just tonight. Any big slate that we have moving forward is going to feel and be like this. So at least we got the Russ thing out of the way, but that doesn't begin to clear everything else we got going on.
Sure doesn't, man. It's gonna be a big night. Well, best of luck to everyone at it tonight. We will be back tomorrow with a show for you. And just, hang in there. This is the intense time. Go get them.